I was mid-roll in a training exercise, teaching rookie SWAT officers how to breach a building safely, when my phone buzzed with a motion alert. My home's loaded with cameras, a habit from years in law enforcement and a desire to catch porch pirates in 4K. But when I opened the live feed, I nearly dropped my rubber training knife. A flashlight beam swept across my living room wall. Someone was inside my house. The camera adjusted, revealing a middle-aged man in cargo pants and a community patrol vest creeping past my bookshelf like he was on a covert mission. Two others followed, one in a fishing hat, another with a walkie-talkie on her fanny pack. My stomach twisted, not from fear, but disbelief. It was Valerie Monroe's fake security patrol, and they'd just broken into the wrong house. Let me back up. I'm Jay Carter, a 15-year veteran of training SWAT teams, federal agents, and elite security forces. After years in the field, I switched to instruction, semi-retired, and bought a quiet house in a suburb to raise my dogs and escape the chaos of flashbangs at 2 a.m. The neighborhood's your classic HOA-run place. Picket fences, newsletters about hedge heights, and paint shade approvals. Most folks were friendly until Valerie took over. She was the HOA dictator, armed with a laminated badge labeled HOA chairwoman, a whistle for garbage day disputes, and delusions of grandeur. Her latest obsession, a civilian community safety task force. She claimed crime was rising. What crime? Someone left their trash bins out an extra day once. But to Valerie, the cul-de-sac was Gotham City. She went all in, recruiting volunteers like she was assembling a suburban Avengers team. She printed uniforms, khaki shirts with Velcro name patches, and neighborhood safety enforcer stenciled on the back, passed out clipboards, and told people to record suspicious activity, like blinking porch lights or tinted windows. My house, with blackout blinds, motion sensors, and a locked storage unit, topped her list. I train officers in my backyard, non-lethal exercises, tactical theory, all legal, but to Valerie, I was a criminal mastermind. When I explained I worked with law enforcement, she scoffed. So, you're like a security guard? I didn't bother correcting her. Then came a pink slip on my door. Notification of voluntary safety inspection request, with voluntary in quotes, stating the task force could escalate if I refused. I crumpled it and tossed it. The night before the break-in, I caught Valerie and her crew measuring my driveway. Just checking setbacks, she smirked. Some of us are keeping the neighborhood safe. You never know what's behind closed blinds. I told her to leave. She ignored me. Back to the break-in. Seeing them in my living room, I went cold, not panicking, but calculating. How long to reach the house? Could I intercept them? Were they armed with something reckless like pepper spray? Valerie's son, Ethan, fancied himself military adjacent after too many video games. He might do something stupid. I dismissed the recruits, saying training was cut for a real-world case study. Jumped in my truck, hit the silent alarm app, and drove fast. On the way, I called the police, reporting trespassers in my home, keeping my identity vague for clean optics. I wanted Valerie to dig her own hole. I reached my house in 6 minutes, parked down the street, approached through the back fence, and entered via the garage. Inside, Valerie and her team were in my kitchen, arguing about opening my shed's locked door. One held bolt cutters. I flicked the breaker, killing the lights. They screamed. I called out calmly, "You're trespassing in a private residence. Put down your tools, exit, and lie on the ground. This is your only warning." Valerie shrieked about being authorized personnel. Ethan lunged for the hallway. I flipped the hallway strobe, a training rig, and he ran into the wall, crumpling. The others scrambled, but I was at the door, flashlight in their faces, instructing them to get down. Valerie barked, "I know my rights." "Yes," I said, "and you violated most of them tonight." She dropped the bolt cutters. 10 minutes later, the cops arrived. I handed over my ID, explained, and showed the footage. The officers, recognizing me, barely hid their laughter. Valerie claimed she was investigating a potential domestic operation under the HOA security clause. The officer, Lieutenant Sanchez, whom I'd trained, said, "You trained my department. Did you give her permission?" I shook my head. Valerie was stunned silent. Her empire of plastic badges began to crumble. Ethan groaned on the floor, one shoe missing, looking like he'd lost a fight with a door. The others, Sandra and Ron, sat on the couch, dazed. Lieutenant Sanchez played the footage. Valerie's voice echoed. "Cut the lock. I don't care if it's illegal. He's probably building bombs." The silence was golden. Sanchez said, "You forced entry without a warrant, consent, or emergency justification." Valerie stammered. "It was an HOA-sanctioned wellness check." I replied, "You picked my gate lock, disabled a camera, and entered with tools. That's burglary." Sanchez called for backup, and Valerie, Ethan, Sandra, and Ron were separated for statements. Valerie refused to answer unless legally mandatory, acting like a half-informed TV lawyer. Neighbors gathered as I watched from the door. Mrs. Harper across the street, martini in hand, mouthed, "What happened?" I shrugged. She grinned. An officer confirmed they'd filed charges for unlawful entry and possession of prohibited self-defense weapons. I let the city handle it, knowing Valerie would dig deeper if left alone. She was escorted out, warned not to return, her face a mix of rage and humiliation. Neighbors asked, "What happened?" Valerie's security team broke in, caught on tape, I said. Jaws dropped. Someone laughed. I cleaned up, drawers opened, furniture moved, even the dog food container checked. What did they expect? A meth lab behind the spice rack. I reviewed footage, labeled files for police, and realized Valerie wasn't just annoying. She was dangerous, delusional, with enough influence to drag others into her madness. She'd broken my trust in the neighborhood. I decided this wouldn't just be a police report. She'd face accountability with strategy and precision. Within 24 hours, the story exploded on the neighborhood group chat. A teen's blurry video of Valerie being walked out by cops went viral, captioned, "Valerie's cops arrested for breaking into SWAT guy's house." The chat lit up, residents shared stories. Mr. Evans said Valerie accused his daughter of domestic espionage for using binoculars in a science project. A single mom said Valerie's patrol followed her son for wearing a hoodie. Valerie's 4-year reign of intimidation shattered. People stopped fearing her. The next day, Mark, a federal agent I'd worked with, visited. We reviewed footage, audio, and HOA emails where Valerie listed high-risk homes, including mine, a firefighter, and a nurse. Mark said, "This could be coordinated harassment and unlawful surveillance, especially if she used HOA dues." I showed him Valerie's Community Safety Task Force intel log, a binder her team left behind, filled with illegal surveillance notes on neighbors, routines, photos from bushes, comments like, "Kid wears dark clothing, possible gang association." Mark said, "If this was unlicensed private investigation, it's a legal violation." I sent the footage anonymously to a local news blog. They ran, "HOA hero or power-hungry trespasser. Suburban Valerie leads a legal raid on SWAT trainer's home." It hit Reddit's r/entitled people, gaining thousands of upvotes. The HOA board held an emergency Zoom meeting. Valerie claimed it was a misunderstanding, denying entry and alleging the footage was edited. But the board didn't buy it. Her voice saying, "Cut it open," was clear. Members resigned, fearing a class action lawsuit. Doris, a librarian, said, "I supported banning wind chimes, but this is insane." The next morning, a formal investigation launched into the HOA's fund use. Investigators, one my former student, visited Valerie. Neighbors thanked me, bringing cookies, asking about security upgrades. "Mr. Thompson said, I can garden without worrying about my gnome violating ordinances." A former board member gave me a USB of HOA transcripts, revealing Valerie's off-record notes on non-compliant residents. I drafted a complaint to the city council and DA with Mark, targeting Valerie's fake patrol, surveillance, and misuse of power. An emergency HOA vote was called via and signed flyers, led by Margaret Langley, a retired Navy JAG officer who'd once stared Valerie down. The clubhouse meeting was packed. Valerie arrived with 2 teens in HOA Patrol Recon Unit polos, strutting in like she was delivering a State of the Union. She claimed the incident was a training miscommunication, alleging I'd invited them for a joint security exercise and the footage was doctored by malicious digital actors. I handed Margaret a flash drive. The footage played, Valerie directing her squad to breach my door, Ethan crashing into the wall, Valerie ordering Ron to check for bomb supplies. Gasps filled the room. Margaret asked, "Do you deny this is you?" Valerie stammered, blaming lighting and voice manipulation. Mr. Bennett, a former cop, said, "I ran the audio through forensic software. It's authentic. This is criminal trespassing, unlawful surveillance, and coercion." Motions passed to remove Valerie as chair and disband her task force permanently, banning similar groups without a two-thirds vote and city approval. Valerie held a press conference on her lawn, taping paper to a music stand, using a megaphone to address 3 neighbors, a dog, and a mailman who left. She claimed tactical bullying by shadow forces. I watched, entertained. The city scheduled a public hearing. Over 60 neighbors attended, forcing a larger room. I testified factually, ending, "I've trained officers across 5 states to enter buildings safely, lawfully, respectfully." Valerie did none of that. She's a threat pretending to be a safety officer. Valerie's lawyer called it an overzealous attempt at safety, suggesting she felt endangered by my strange activities. Margaret called out, "You mean CPR training for first responders?" The judge ruled Valerie violated civic codes, impersonation, unlawful entry, harassment via surveillance. She was fined heavily, barred from HOA office for 10 years, ordered to take an ethics course, and required to publicly apologize. The neighborhood celebrated with a barbecue. Mr. Thompson passed out neighborhood peacekeeper stickers to kids, joking they had more authority than Valerie. I added a lock to my shed, updated sensors, and thanked the officers. I declined chairing the HOA security committee, preferring to stay low-key. Valerie delivered a lawyer-drafted apology letter, with a handwritten note in the margin, "I was wrong." The HOA hired a licensed security consultant, and I advised on legitimate practices, no fake badges, no Valeries. Evenings now, I sit on my porch with iced tea, watching kids bike and dogs play. The neighborhood feels calm, a community again, not a dictatorship. Margaret leads with a notebook, listening, not lecturing. No drama, just leadership. Valerie's house went dark, her car unmoved. She moved away, leaving a lighter neighborhood behind. I defended my home, protected my rights, and showed a bully the exit. No battering ram needed.